Digital nomads, heroes leveraging technology to work from wherever they please in the world. For some trades, especially in tech, all you need is a good laptop and a solid internet connection, and you are set. The location can become irrelevant. What is a digital nomad, anyhow? How does it really work? How does it feel to be a digital nomad? What's up with all the return to office mandates? Is remote work ever going to go away? Today, I have the pleasure to interview Taiga Gamell, a true digital nomad who spends his year in at least 4 countries in something like 3 different continents. He is really my hero. Tiga is a co-founder at Gilder, an international membership community for innovators and builders to elevate their entrepreneurial potential. And he has a special talent to build connections that he wants to share with you so that you can quickly get up to speed on what really growing in your career means. And you can feel this. You just spend 10 minutes with him on the phone and you will feel how good he is at making connections. So, Taiga, thank you so much for being here.
Mateo, really appreciate that really warm-hearted introduction. You also are my hero for, being from Uruguay, building a successful business, working, in the United States. So I just want to also say, really appreciate the kind words, and you also are a hero of mine as well.
Taiga, let's get started with the very basics. What do you do today for a living?
Yeah, so I am the co-founder of Gilder. It's one of the Well, I think it's the best entrepreneurial and founder and executive community in the world. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to help purpose-driven startup founders achieve their goals of getting connected to top mentors in the world, getting connected to top investors in the world, then also making sure that their business is strategically growing, making sure that they're going down the right path and ultimately helping them save a lot of time and resources and energy by making sure that they have those right connections with their platform.
So, what's your background and what experiences led you to co-found Gilder, and what were you trying to solve?
Yeah, of course. So I have a fairly eclectic background. After university, my actual initial goal was I majored in environmental studies and business and minored in spatial analytics. My initial goal after university was to work on something that can help the world be more sustainable. At the time, really the only opportunities out there, this is about 7 years ago, though, really the only opportunities in kind of the sustainability realm. I went to college down in Southern California. We're really working on like a preserve at a national park, something along the lines of that. And I really wanted to work in startups. Kind of my background has always been startups. My father is an entrepreneur, my mother's an entrepreneur and a professor. And I learned that, from a young age, if you only dedicate, a certain amount of time solving a specific problem that people are looking for, you can dedicate a lot less time solving that problem than working like a 9 to 5 job. And as far as, the amount of resources you get back and the amount of value you get back, creating something for yourself has always been something that I've wanted to do and what I've understood. So from a young age, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I started my career in Seattle. I actually worked at a SaaS startup. It's called Click Labs. Basically, they have multiple SaaS products. One was like an online management logistics software. Another one was an online marketplace website builder. And what they would do is they would actually fork out the source code, white label it, and then resell it to other actually founders, a lot of startup founders that wanted to create their own app. So I started on my career there. The first quarter I joined, I led the company in sales, and they sent me out to India, which is actually where the majority of the development process happened for the company I was working at, just because India far more affordable and accessible
Right.
than US talent. So I went to India for a month. I learned a lot, and that really motivated me upon my return to the States. So I started working on my senior project, which was called Kudos. And what Kudos is a two-way marketplace app that incentivizes users to be more sustainable by tracking and quantifying their use. So let's say you carpool more, you recycle more, you eat less red meat, you get accumulated these Kudos points, and then you can actually purchase sustainable products on the marketplace. We ended up getting a small amount of funding to start that endeavor while I was also working full time at my job in Seattle. Uh, I wanted to focus fully on this, so I started focusing fully on Kudos, and then the pandemic hit. And as you know, during the pandemic, it was a very difficult time for startups and for businesses in general. And it was very difficult to do one major thing, which I think a lot of startups don't realize how difficult it is, but customer acquisition.
Right.
During that time, customer acquisition was incredibly difficult. So a startup accelerator reached out to me to apply as a startup founder to go through this accelerator. And at that time, I wasn't interested. I didn't really see the value in joining an accelerator. Started, continuing to work on Kudos, was running out of runway, and actually the same accelerator reached out to me, a recruiter, to ask me to join and be part of this accelerator.
Right.
So I joined this accelerator, and that's where I learned kind of the ins and outs of what it takes to be a startup founder, the grit, the determination, and the passion ultimately to make a business successful. And I also learned, during my time at a startup accelerator, you really shouldn't start a startup because everyone else is doing it. You really shouldn't start a startup because you want to be like your friends. You should ultimately start a startup understanding the problem that you're facing, every single day that you're facing in your career, and you see a solution for that problem that you can create.
Right.
And so when I was working at this accelerator is charging between $6,000 to $18,000 for a 6-month program.
Right.
A lot of the founders, that's, the last bit of their runway. But we would guarantee that, we'd get them connected to investors, get them connected to a lot of mentors. And so being on the product and program team, I saw that the startup founders gain the most value out of the mentorship component and the
Mm.
investor relations component. However, at this accelerator, there was no community afterwards.
Mm.
And actually, my boss, who was the director of product, Brian Lee, we came together May of 2023, and actually a mentor at this accelerator, Michael Frank, we came up with Gilder because we wanted to give an opportunity for startup founders to have much like an accelerator experience for, literally, one hundredth of the price.
Right.
And also we want startup founders in, more underserved communities. Actually, Tokyo, Japan is a good example. Another good example is, a lot of places in Southeast Asia, a lot of places even in Africa. And we want to focus, like we have some founders out in Nigeria that don't have the opportunity to talk to resources in the Bay Area or in Austin, Texas, or in New York. And these are really key areas for startup founders to really find a lot of success. And so that's why we started Gilder. And I don't know if that was too kind of a long-winded answer, but that's kind of the ultimate reason why we wanted to start Gilder is we want to help founders accomplish their goals by connecting to a community of like-minded individuals where we can all grow together.
No, I think it does answer the question, and it's amazing. You did a million things, right? But you were in that accelerator program, and you saw how people were spending the last pennies that they have, the last money, right? And maybe that you could build something that could help them get the same resources at a fraction, very small fraction of the money. And you saw the value of mentorship. You saw the value of those relationships, right? And that's what Gilder is really providing to everyone. Um, I want to go back a little bit to the problem. I like what you said about the problem solving. Um, do you think there are many people that just want so desperately to found a startup that maybe they start working on the wrong problem or something that is not a problem, or they have a hard time finding a problem to solve?
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs start their entrepreneurial endeavors because they want to solve a major problem, right? Like
Right.
I want to solve global warming. I want to solve, the talent issue in different areas, or I want to
Right.
solve, one big issue. And that's great. And obviously a lot of people are, going through maybe the detriments of climate change, or a lot of people are going through, the housing crisis in multiple countries all over the world. A lot of people are facing these issues, but I think it's too macro
Yeah.
of a focus. And then I see a lot of entrepreneurs also really like want to be the all-in-one solution for everything. Like they want to be the next big social media marketplace that'll take over TikTok and will actually pay, users
Yep.
to use them. Right. So it's just they're really trying, and then, I don't want to, say names or anything, but this founder is also trying to build like an augmented reality thing and implementing AI. And I think that's just too many things to focus on, especially when you're trying to just start out and create some sort of revenue. So kind of going back to the micro, understanding what is the ultimate unmet need that you're solving as a founder, and do you actually have a good solution for that unmet need that could potentially change the way that people do that particular thing, if that makes sense. So, for example, like Jeff Bezos, I mean, kind of an outlier example, but he literally changed the way how people shop,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I mean, I think a lot of people want to start and be like, I want to change the way how people do X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, Amazon started out as an online bookstore,
Yeah.
right? So they started out with one simple premise and then grew and grew and grew. And, it was very strategic. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people start out with a million different things and then crumble apart.
Right. That makes sense. Let's go back to the role of mentorship. So let's say I joined Gilder. I'm a startup founder, and I want to get access to successful entrepreneurs or people that just went through some of the things that I am about to go through. Right? How
Mhm.
does it work? Why is it so important in your opinion, and how does it work at Gilder?
Yeah, great question. I think having some sort of mentorship, it's a proven stat that if you have at least in the startup world, if you have some sort of mentorship or if you know someone that has gone through and had a business that succeeded, past 3 years, your business is literally 20% more likely to succeed and grow past 5 years
Right.
than those startup founders that try to do everything on their own. So having someone that's been there, that's done that, that understands all the speed bumps that you could potentially be facing, um, that will ultimately help the founder save a lot of time, resources, and those resources are, capital, and they can be a lot more strategic where they allocate that capital. And I mean, you know, a lot of, I think a lot of founders are, yeah, they just don't realize how difficult it is to start a business and also what the first steps to take. And so what we do at Gilder is we understand what the founder's goals are, what their 3 month goals are, what their 6 month goals are, what their year-long goals are. And based on those, then we find, so let's say that the first 3 months, this founder, we interview them, we understand what, what their business is, what their main focuses are, what kind of bottlenecks they're currently facing. And then let's say a founder was like, all right, like I'm really like looking for customer acquisition. I need someone that has, you know, B2B experience, particularly in the SaaS world. Then we actually have an extensive mentorship database. And actually, before we even started, we created a community of about 160 top quality mentors,
Hmm.
ranging from the founder and CEO of ClassPass and MindBody to, the ex-head of product of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to the director of product at PayPal. So we really wanted top quality people that have succeeded in their industries and their verticals to help and align with these early stage startup founders. And so, yeah, so then let's say that the startup founders looking these 3 months for, customer acquisition, we set them up with a mentor, and then that mentor meets with them for 2 hours per month. Uh, we give them basically paperwork on how they should, maximize their mentorship engagements.
Right.
And then we leave it up to the founder and mentor to organize the meetings and set those up.
Okay.
After 3 months, we check in with the founder and the mentor. If they like that relationship, then we help them with a fast agreement. And actually, we want to help that founder bring that mentor on as an advisor. So
Uh-huh.
now instead of the mentor dedicating 2 hours per month onto their startup, they dedicate between 8 to 10 hours per month. And then for that period that they're advising, they get typically like it depends on what stage of startup they're in, but they get equity, ranging from an eighth of percent to a full percent equity, depending on the stage.
Got it.
Uh, a lot of the mentors find really cool opportunities to advise these early stage startups. So they get a huge value add. The founder gets a huge value add by basically finding top talent to bring on their advisory board. And we really create a cool ecosystem where a lot of our founders are actually creating partnerships with each other. There's speed networking events, there's 5 different online workshops every month, and then we have an in-person event every quarter. And so after 3 months, then we pair them with a new mentor on whatever the next level of focus is. So let's say it's fundraising, or let's say it's, well, fundraising is a good example. Then we pair them with an expert who has fundraised. And then after 3 months, we do the same thing. We're like, hey, like, do you like this person? Like, recommend bringing them onto your advisory board. A lot of the founders that we talk with don't have advisory boards. And typically, like, advisory boards are 5 different seats. So our ultimate goal, besides mentorship, is helping them fulfill their advisory boards.
How do you choose founders? How, I assume it's not any founder that can get into Gilder. What are you looking for? Are you doing like, seeing that they do have like a product market fit, etc.? What is it that you are pre-vetting them on?
Yeah. So we really like purpose-driven entrepreneurs and founders. We do have a wide, I mean, so like, for example, like we have founders that have been ex Microsoft employees, ex
Mm,
Apple employees, ex Google employees that have worked kind of the corporate route their whole entire lives, that are just, they're like maybe in their 40s or 50s, that have no idea how to start a startup, but they have like an MVP and
right.
they just need our help and they need that support on kind of what are the next steps. And then on the contrary, we do have like recent college graduates that are very passionate, that have so much energy, but don't know the right path to strategically go down, but also have a pretty good MVP.
Okay.
So like, but then we also do have like a lot of founders that have like established businesses where, I mean, some of our founders have $5 to $10 million in revenue per year. But we really like purpose-driven startup founders. We really like basically innovators and creators, and we only like having founders. Like really, it's a founder-only community. Occasionally, we do have like a senior product or a senior engineer at like Visa is another one of our members that on the side he's working on like a side hustle, and he just likes having this founder community to pick their brains on. And so it's a wide range, but we basically interview every single person that applies for membership, and we want to make sure that there's a good fit. There's a lot of I don't know, there's a lot of interesting people out there, and we want to make sure that we have a very healthy, passionate, clean community out there that we're all working together to achieve our entrepreneurial endeavors. And
You were
and so
so politically correct. I loved it. A lot of interesting people out there. I love it.
yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, let's dive into the digital nomad world. Where are you right now in the world, and where are you going to next?
So I'm currently in Valparaiso, Chile. I'm gonna be in Buenos Aires, Argentina, March through May. After that, it's pretty up in the air, but I'm considering, obviously, I definitely want to visit Uruguay while I'm in Argentina for a couple days. Of course, I'll chew up, but planning on potentially going to Colombia. I was originally planning to go to Brazil, but then I saw that Brazil requires a visa starting in April for US citizens. So I didn't want to kind of just deal with any of that. So I'm potentially going to Colombia. Then after that, I'm gonna go back to the States for the summertime and then to Japan. So the past since 2022, I've been essentially living in 3 different continents, North America, South America, and Asia. And it's been quite the journey.
That is definitely amazing. What? So I heard a little bit of this story before, but why Chile? How did you get connected to South America?
Yeah. Well, so long story short, I dated a girl that was, in Missoula. She's an aerial yoga instructor. We met and she had to move back to Chile, unfortunately. And kind of serendipitously, my apartment lease in the States was, ending. Another thing, like I was paying around 1,100 to 1,200 bucks a month for rent, and then it also increased that next year to 1,650. This was, 2021 to 2022. And just at that time, the housing market where I'm from in Montana and also just a lot of other places like Idaho, Nevada, the housing market literally increased by like 60, 70%, like the prices on housing and rent. So I started looking at options in Chile. I went to Chile for a couple days and then she was really busy with her aerial yoga classes and was busy with students. So I actually ended up going to Buenos Aires. This was back in like October, November 2022.
Hmm?
That was around the same time the World Cup was happening. And at that time I didn't realize how good it was, but it was honestly the most amazing timing to be in Argentina was November, December of 2022. And so I happened to be there at that time. And I was originally planning to stay in Buenos Aires for just a month, but I ended up staying for a couple months and just because it was so amazing. And for those who don't know, at that time, Buenos Aires had two different rates. They had the blue dollar rate, which is kind of the black market rate, and then they had the official bank rate. The blue dollar rate at that time, you can get $1 if you had, cash, you can exchange $1 for around 300 pesos. And at that time, the official rate was about 120 pesos per dollar. So you can effectively, if you brought down US dollars or euro, you can 2x or 3x the amount of value that you get back in pesos. So it was incredible. We were going out to amazing five-star steak dinners for $10 a person with unlimited wine and unlimited steak and provoleta. It was an incredible experience. And that basically was the reality for, I guess, nomads in Argentina from, I mean, maybe a little bit before that time up until Javier Milei took over, which was 2022 December, or
Yeah.
sorry, 2023 December.
Yep.
But then it was, I mean, I was still went back in last year, March, and that's about the time that the blue dollar rate and the official rate started to have less of a gap. So I think right now the official rate's like 1100 pesos and the blue dollar rate's like 1200. So I mean, there's really effectively no difference.
Yeah.
But back when there was a huge difference, it was a great experience for any nomad traveling there that's earning in US dollars or euros.
So you are from Missoula, but you studied in California, first
Yeah.
job in Seattle. You have family in Japan. Um, I have a question for you. What's your place? Do you have a place in the world? Do you have like this is my place? I can live everywhere, but this is if I had to choose one place, this will be it.
I think there are a couple of variables that kind of would determine that. Obviously, Missoula, Montana is always going to be my home. I grew up there. I have a lot of amazing family, friends, resources there. Uh, but I mean, I do also I loved Seattle. I could definitely see myself kind of settling down and continuing my career in Seattle. But for the time being, I think this type of lifestyle is I learn far more about myself and about the world having this type of lifestyle than living in Seattle for, 2 or 3 years, and which I've done before. Living in Seattle for 2 or 3 years was fantastic too,
Right,
but I mean, you just don't, you kind of are in your own little bubble. And I think a lot of people, and maybe this could be a West Coast thing, but a lot of people in California and Washington, they really stay in their own little tech bubble.
right,
And so a lot of people I interact with are great for my career because they're all tech guys and tech bros, and we can talk about similar things. But once you start traveling, you kind of just meet all different kinds of amazing people from all different backgrounds, which I think that paints more color into my life that I really enjoy, which I wouldn't have if I was living in Seattle or living in just in the States. I think the States and I don't want to talk down on the States or anything, but I think generally like you really go out and hang out with the same group of people that you go with in the States.
yeah,
Um, Down in South America and other places, just the traveling mindset, people are way more open and way more willing to meet random people and kind of, build beautiful connections.
right,
Uh,
right.
and that could just because like, people are kind of in that traveling mindset and it's just, it's a good vibes, But I think it's definitely added an amazing perspective living in all these different places. And yeah, eventually I do want to settle down. And I think if I meet, the right person, um, that'd probably be a factor. And if I have kids, that'd probably be a factor. But I think that's another, I mean, I'm 28, so I think that's another, 4 or
Another
5 years.
chapter. Another. You don't need to
Yep,
worry
yep,
about that right now.
yep, yep.
Um, can you define what being a digital nomad is? Do you consider to be yourself to be a digital nomad? And if you had to put it in a few sentences, what is it?
A person that works online that can live place to place that doesn't have a home. I think that's what a digital nomad is. I consider definitely myself as a digital nomad, but I've been going to the same places for the past 3 years. Like I've
Right.
consistently gone to Chile, Argentina, then, Japan. I'm just switching up the,
Yeah. Yeah.
this year I'm gonna go, Latin America to Japan. But in the past I've always done like, Latin America to Asia, back to the US. Um, and so I think the traditional digital nomad is a person that stays in one place, gets a one-way ticket, experiments. If they like it, they'll stay there longer. If they don't like it, they'll go somewhere else and rinse and repeat. And I've met a lot of digital nomads in Buenos Aires that they've lived in Colombia, they've lived in Guatemala, they live all over, even in Europe, and then they end up finding their place in Buenos Aires.
Right.
Um, and then they just become an expat. So I
Right.
guess there's a yeah. So I guess a digital nomad is someone that works online that goes from place to place. But I guess I work online, I go from place to place, but I always go to the same spot. So I have the same community um, that I've, built up the past couple of years.
Right. Is there such a thing as a nomad fatigue? Do you ever get tired of it and you're like, oh man, I wish I could just stay there, or not really, and you go with the flow, and if you don't like somewhere, you just go to the next. How does it feel?
Yeah. So the how I can answer that is, yeah, of course, like there's a time, well, it was actually last year in May where I literally was like, I went from Buenos Aires to Chile, back to the States, to Tokyo, to Taiwan, all within a span of about a month. I
Wow.
wasn't as productive and I was also doing Gilder stuff full time. I wasn't as productive with Gilder stuff. My sleep pattern was all over the place. And after I got back to Japan from Taiwan, I just basically stayed in Japan in the same spot too, in the same city from like mid-July all the way until September.
Right.
So I did get a little bit of that just hopping around place to place fatigue. And another thing, having this lifestyle, uh, I guess when I was staying in one place for the majority of my life and then I'd visit a place for a couple weeks, for those weeks that you're at a new place, you really enjoy um, those new places that you see.
Right.
Being a nomad, you kind of get desensitized to just experiencing new places and new things. And so those are some things that I've encountered, but I do have a reset. And that reset is spending 3 to 4 months in Missoula. So
uh
whenever I have that reset, it's kind of like recharging my battery. I go to CrossFit 5 days a week. I meditate a lot more. I don't drink alcohol. Well, I try not to drink alcohol. I do it like once or twice a month instead of every weekend here in Latin America. Um, it's a good reset for me. And I think if every nomad has that place where they can reset, I think that's kind of a good justifiable balance of having that crazy lifestyle and then having that, recharging and staying in one place lifestyle.
I love it. I love it. What trends do you foresee in the future of work, particularly talking about remote work and digital nomads? What's up with the return to office mandates? Do you think?
Yeah, that's that's another big topic. I think the the return to office mandates are going to be detrimental to a lot of big companies because there's also a lot of big companies that are 100% remote and that will be 100% remote forever. And the granted, there are a lot of people that love going in the office, that like having that balance and that like that office camaraderie. But I think for the most part, a lot of people like, waking up and rolling out of bed and just going on their laptop and starting work. Like they don't want to, they don't want to, get up at, 2 hours before work starts and kind of get ready and do their thing, which I did that for a couple years. And I prefer the work from home lifestyle and having more flexibility. And I think the people that prefer that will have I think they'll be more productive, they'll be more creative, just because for some people, if they go in the office and they know that someone's always looking down the back of their necks on what they're doing, they're not as productive and they're not as creative. So I think, uh, I think the future of work is gonna be it's going to be remote. It's going to have to be remote. And
Right.
also, you see it in Twitter and a lot of those other big companies, I guess X. I mean, they're not using their office space, so they're going to be saving a lot of money on not having to pay for office space.
Yeah.
Uh, and I mean, I think it's yeah, the future of work is remote.
Um, so remote workers everywhere in the world or in different cities, how do you build communities online? What are some of the best practices to build communities online, knowing that everyone is like everywhere around the world?
Yeah, the best practice and what we've been doing. So at Gilder, we have four main cities where the majority of our members are in. That's San Francisco, Austin, New York, and Chicago. And in those four main cities, we actually have in-person events. We try to do them once a quarter, but we actually have a lot of our members that are meeting up, to grab coffee before, South by Southwest in Austin or New York Tech Week. We have a lot of our members that meet up and then go to New York Tech Week together.
Right.
So having an online community, I think there has to be some sense of in person. And then for members that are in Europe and for members that are in Japan, I mean, we try to just keep in touch with them as much as possible. We send them emails to make sure that, they're accomplishing their goals within our community. We do regular check-ins. There's a lot of different things. And also another thing, just for anybody that's interested in Gilder, we do give 50% discounts in certain places just because the exchange
Right.
rate's far different. So our typical membership is $59 a month. If you're calling out of any other place that's not the US or it's $30 a month. So it's super affordable for all the resources that we give access to. Um, and all the in-person engagements come with membership too. So I think just having I mean, we have 5 consistent events every single month too. And I think having a regular cadence of, we have our speed networking event, we have our founder firesides, we have a pitch deck event once a quarter, we have an executive workshop every single month, and each topic varies. We have innovation roundtables once a month. All those things that are just consistent engagement meetings create a really good sense of community because our founder in Portugal, like she's already actually built connections with some of our founders that are in Brazil.
Right.
Um, so it's just having a good mix of in person and virtual,
That makes sense.
and that
Um,
provide enough value.
yes. Yes. No, but I 100% agree. So if someone is listening and they are working maybe in an old school type company and they wanna change, right? They wanna change in their lives and they want to transition to a digital nomad lifestyle and maybe do that and at the same time become an entrepreneur. I don't know.
Mhm.
What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, general advice is if you want to become an entrepreneur and you have a stable income, make sure that I'd recommend save up a year's worth of income um, just before starting your entrepreneurial endeavors, just because I mean most founders don't see a paycheck from their own business because we invest all of the money that we make in our business back into the business. So just don't ex I mean, unless you have like, you know that you'll be able to get an influx of customers, like just always have a year's worth of income
Right.
um in your back pocket. That's just for any emergency expenses to live your life. Because the last thing that you want is a founder is to use all that mental energy to worry about paying rent.
Right.
You know, when you have, mental clarity of not worrying about those specific things, you can focus 100% on your business. And then the next thing I would say is just, again, don't start a business just because everyone else is doing it and you want to be a digital nomad. Start a business from encountering a problem that you've solved, you've experienced over and over again. And if you have that solution that will hit it out of the ballpark, that's when you should become an entrepreneur.
Taiga, one last very random question to you. What do you do when you are not working?
So what I do when I'm not working, I'm kind of an extreme sport person. I actually, when I lived in Seattle, I used to get around on a longboard. I don't know if you can really see in the Zoom, but
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
back of a windshield, there's a bunch of scars right here. So I love boarding. I mean, I'm from Montana. I love skiing. I can slalom ski, which is skiing with one ski. I love kind of more extreme sports. I'm very active. Like every weekend. Like for example, this weekend I'm gonna go to the Concon Dunes and we're gonna go sandboarding.
Nice.
And then after that, we might go. There's actually a beach that's close by, and we might surf. So just fun stuff like that. That really, I mean, like I like to work out and everything, but I'd prefer doing fun activities while also getting in shape. So that's kind of like my mindset. I'm just super active. I did martial arts. I did Taekwondo from the time I was 4 years old, and
Wow.
I'd gotten into more martial arts, like judo, boxing, kickboxing, and so I like to, do martial arts as well. But yeah, when I'm not focused on entrepreneurial stuff, that's kind of like those are my passions.
I love it. The X Games
Yes,
with
sir.
Taiga. Very good. Very good. Um,
That-
Taiga, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I hope you can get to come to Uruguay and I will host you and I will do barbecue for you in my home here. Um, and we can, I hope we can stay in touch. I know we will probably do with Gilder and then um, maybe do this sometime again in the future.
Mateo, that sounds great. I'm definitely going to see you in Uruguay, 100%. I really appreciate your time and fantastic conversation. I'll talk to you soon.